Tier list, 90 cheeky tier lists. Tier list, 90 cheeky tier lists. Hello everyone, my name's Christopher Nightingale, and I'm back again with another cheeky tier list. And this week we're talking about Pixar films. Now, during my lifetime, computer-generated animation has just gone from strength to strength. And the people that really started it off and brought it into the mainstream were Pixar Animation Studios. And they have made a ton of classic films over the last 25, 30 years. So I'm going to rank them in a tier list now. So here we go. As always, I've got my categories. So I've got Pixar Perfection for the absolute pinnacle. I've got great, good, decent, poor, and naturally there may be some that I've just not seen yet. So there's a bit of a list down here. So let's kick off with A Bug's Life. This is an alphabetical order, these. So A Bug's Life. Now I think A Bug's Life is good. I'd say it's good. I'd say it's... They're following on from Toy Story. It was their second film, A Bug's Life. It came out in 1998. I think it's got an okay story, a decent story. It's got a great villain. The thing I remember most about Bug's Life are the circus animals, which are really, really funny. And the villain, Hopper. The grasshoppers kind of steal that film. And he is a great villain. He is a brilliant villain in it. But overall, it kind of, in comparison to the other films, I feel it falls a little bit flat. It doesn't... Yeah, I don't think it's as memorable as the other Pixar films. I think it's just, it's okay, it's decent, it tells a reasonable story, but it's not. Yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's dated, because it's not. I don't think the film itself is dated. I just think it has the unfortunate problem of being followed up by superior films. So A Bug's Life is good, and it was great at one point, but I don't think it's there. I think compared to the others, it's been knocked down a bit. Brave. Like, I think Brave is decent. I think Bug's Life is better than Brave. I think Brave... The only... I think whenever people think of Brave, they think Scottish... Scottish woman with a bow, that's about it. And they can't really remember much else. That's because I don't think much else happens in it. And I having watched it, I know the vague... I just don't think it's very memorable. I mean, at least Bug's Life is memorable. Brave, I don't think is very memorable at all. I think you really struggle to... I just think it's a poor effort, really. There was so much potential there. They had the whole setting of Scotland. They were going with like a folk vibe, but it just is. I think it's wasted potential. Actually, I think it could be great, but the story lets it down. The characters aren't really all that good. It's odd. It smacks of missed potential for me. Brave. All right, we're on to the Cars films now, folks. Now, I'm just going to say right off the bat, I think this is Pixar's worst franchise by some distance. I think. And that's not saying they're bad films, because even the poorest of Pixar efforts compared to overall family entertainment are still really good. But by Pixar's high standards, Cars falls way below it. And this Cars 2, I don't know why it's got Cars 2 ahead of Cars 1, but Cars 2, in fact, you know what, I'm gonna save you all this jargon, right? Cars 2, Cars 1 are poor. Cars 3 is the best out of the three, but not by very much, and therefore Cars 3 goes indecent. Cars, oh God. It's just downright bizarre. Cars is just downright odd. I don't understand the world of Cars. Like, to me, it smacks of a cash-in. And that's an awful thing to say about Pixar, because I know they're great artists and they take huge pride in what they do. But it smacks, for the first time actually, in their whole history, it smacked of a film that was made purely to sell toys to children. That's what this film, that's what Cars seems like. It was made purely to sell toys. And that's it. Because there's barely, I mean, it's just, I think the characters are really bad. I think Owen Wilson literally just plays Owen Wilson. At least Cars 3 attempts a bit of emotion, because it's like about a car that's past it, and it's about a car. It's a car that's past it. I'm kind of putting emotion onto Cars now, but that's what the film wants me to do, so I'm just going to say, well, it's about a car who thinks he's past it, run his last race, and then comes back and helps. It's about the old passing on their experience to the new generation. And that gives Cars 3 an edge, because at least there's a story. This is an arc to the characters. Cars 1, I can't tell you for 1 second what happens in Cars 1. And Cars 2 is so muddled. And it's a shame, because Cars 2, you know, being a big Bond fan, Cars 2 has a lot of, like, British spy cars in it, because it's kind of a spy film. But it totally just, I mean, you can't follow what the hell is going on. And all the potential they had, it's a little bit like Brave, but to even more of an extent. All the potential they had Michael Caine voicing a car, a British Aston Martin car, and they don't do anything with it. They do nothing with it. They do, honestly, and they make the whole film about, I've even forgotten his name, Lightning McQueen's mate. Is it Mater, the truck. They make the whole Cars 2 makes the entire film about him, and he's so annoying. Oh God, is he annoying in that film? And Cars 3 is wise and kind of puts him to the side, but Cars 2, he is right front and centre, and you're just like, good God, just get him off screen, So yeah, Cars 2 is actually, I think, the poorest Pixar film. They're just going to say that, hands up. But the Cars franchise in general, I'm not a fan of. It sounds like I'm slagging off Pixar films here, but let's change that quite quickly, because the next one is Coco, and that is, for my money, one of the very best Pixar films. I'm just going to say it right off the bat. Coco is superb. Coco is absolutely superb. It has so much going on in it. It's about the power of music. It's about the importance of remembering family, and how remembering your past and your ancestry is very important and should be celebrated. And what is just brilliant about it, apart from the animation, which is flawless, and the worlds they build, and it was a complete education to me, because it's all set around the Day of the Dead festival in Mexico. Now, I don't know anything about the day. I knew nothing about the Day of the Dead festival before this film. I didn't know. I knew, like, I'd seen pictures of it and images of it, but I had no idea of the significance of it until Coco, which explains it beautifully. And it makes me think, do you know what, flipping it, that is a great idea for a festival. We should have that in this country. It should be a global thing. You know, I think it's beautiful, the fact that there is a special day which you remember your family and friends that have passed. And for that day, the spirits can, it basically acts as a portal for the spirits to come back into this world and just see how they are remembered and see their ancestry generations on. Brilliant idea. But then to go a step further than that, and at its heart, make it a film about how music is so important to this family, and especially important to the grandmother who is suffering from dementia, in remembering her own father who passed away years ago. Through listening to her father's music, the grandmother suddenly remembers all her ancestry. That ending is absolutely stunning. It's just, and I mean, wow, I welled up, I teared up at it. It is one of the best endings to an animated film I've seen. And I watch it every year, actually. I watch it at Halloween, because I don't really like Halloween. I don't like Halloween that much at all. If Halloween was like Day of the Dead each year, God, I'd love Halloween, but it's not in this country. So for me, my Halloween film, I treat it as Day of the Dead, and I watch Coco every Halloween. Yeah, Pixar perfection, Coco. If you haven't seen it, check it out. The Finding Nemo films. Let's go with the earliest one. Finding Nemo. Great film. What can I say about Finding Nemo that hasn't been said before? I've got Nemo there. It's a great film. It's such a simple story. It's basically a quest film, but over the course of a whole ocean. And the quest is to find a father trying to find his son that has been taken from the sea into a dentist's fish tank, and it's about him crossing the Great Barrier Reef along with Dory, forgetful sidekick, to try and find his son. And on the way, he learns a lot of lessons about himself and how he can be a better parent once he's reunited with his son. It's funny. The ocean looks stunning. I remember when this came out in 2003, watching it at the cinema and just been absolutely blown away by how gorgeous the ocean looked. And I think people take for granted now how good computer animation has got. But back in 2003, when there weren't too many of these films about, Disney was still doing hand-drawn 2D animation at that point. They hadn't done, Wreck-It Ralph or Frozen, and Disney hadn't switched over to computer-generated animation. So it was only really Pixar that were doing it. And to see them do the ocean and have it look almost as real as a David Attenborough documentary, to watch that as like a 12-year-old when I was watching it at the time, I was just stunned. I was blown away by the animation in this. And it still holds up today. If you watch it again, it still holds up. Absolutely stunning. The characters are great. Even the side characters are great. The turtles are really, yeah, dude, like proper surfer, cool. And the sharks with the Fish Anonymous meeting is just genius. Comic genius. It's such a brilliant idea. And even like the one joke, characters that could be reduced to one joke, like Dory. You look at Dory and you think on paper you think, oh, man, it's effectively one joke. She has short-term memory loss, so she forgets everything that she's told a few minutes later. Now that could, in the wrong hands, get dull really, really quick. And they just make it, mainly thanks to Ellen DeGeneres' performance, as well as the writing, they make it absolutely endearing. Like, you're never bored. You never for 1 second think they're repeating themselves. You just go with it, and you really care about this character. And what it does is it adds so much to the film, because when she does finally remember something really important, that's a huge moment. And that brings me on to the next film that I actually, and I know this may be controversial, I actually prefer to Finding Nemo, which is Finding Dory. I actually think is a slightly better film, because there's more going, because of the affection you have for Dory, and just the stakes and the scale is elevated. The whole idea that her parents have been looking for her for years and years and years and just never given up hope. That hit, for me, that hit more of an emotional core than Finding Nemo did. Even though Finding Nemo touched me, Finding Dory literally just destroyed me. Like Finding Dory, there is a moment in Finding Dory which I just think is the most beautiful bit of visual imagery, most emotional bit of visual imagery I've seen in any animated film, which is where Dory has finally reached her parents' home, having looked for her parents for years. Like, having looked for her parents through a whole entire aquarium, spoken to everyone, really worried about, finding, giving up all hope. Suddenly, out in the ocean, she follows a trail of little shells, and you see a little house, underwater house, with loads of trails in all directions surrounding it of shells going up. And that image is so emotional, because it shows that the parents never gave up hope that one day their daughter would remember to follow shells and find her way home. After 20 years of probably putting shells out every day. It's just, that alone, for me, that in its own right would put Finding Dory above Finding Nemo, for me personally, because I think that's unbelievable. I think that's brilliant storytelling, visual storytelling, and it's done with no music, nothing. It's just pure visuals. You look at it and you instantly, through looking at that, you know everything about the characters. You know everything about the characters of their parents, and you are fully with Dory in that moment, so that when they finally reconnect, it's just like, oh, brilliant. And then you get just pure brilliance of, like, ridiculous moments, like all the otters on the highway looking really cute and just stopping loads of traffic. You get, like, genius moments like that. And Idris Elba as Idris Elba as a seal going off. Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Gerald cracks me up all the time. So for me, it just places it slightly above Finding Nemo. So a sequel, I think, that's better than the original. Oh, wow. Inside Out, I think, is up there in the perfection. I think as a concept, this is one of the best animated films ever made. The concept is just brilliant. It's absolutely superb, extremely clever. But not only clever in the fact that it in its concept, but it's also brilliant at explaining it in a way that is accessible to any age. That you never for 1 second think, I don't follow what's going on here. You completely understand, right, there's long-term memory there, this leads to that. It makes logical sense exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. And it's basically a story about a young girl learning through going through basically a pit of depression, how to deal with moving to a new place and how to realize that it's okay to let out negative emotions rather than keep it bottled up and trying to be happy all the time. You could have, and the thing is, that story's so simple but so good that you could have actually just played that story out as a short film without all the stuff going in her head, and it would still be brilliant. But not only, but then you add on top of that all the stuff that's going on in her head with all the different emotions conflicting with each other and working out themselves, like Joy working out the importance of sadness. Like how important sadness is, that people feel sadness, that actually helps them grow as a person. And Joy actually realising that, and the journey that Joy goes on is absolutely the same as the journey Riley is going on in the real world. And then it's just... absolutely, I just think it's masterful. And I tear up. Every time Riley comes back and starts breaking down and talking to her parents about, I know you want me to be happy, but I can't be happy all the time. I'm gone. I'm sorry, I'm gone at that point. I'm just absolutely in floods of tears. It's just brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant inside out. So yeah. Lucia, I haven't seen. Please leave in the comments what your thoughts are on these films, and I haven't seen Lucia, so let me know if you think Lucia's worth watching. Monsters Inc. is... yeah, it's a great film. It's just a great film. For me, that entire film, boiled down, is between Sully and Boo. That's all I care about is Sully and Boo. But that relationship and connection that those two characters have, where Sully really learns to care about this little girl, really, really cares about her, that is so good, that's so well done, that carries the entire film. The entire film. The fact that you've got loads of extra stuff on top of it and extra great ideas put on top, and you've got Mike Wazowski and Billy Crystal and John Sullivan are doing John Goodman are doing an amazing job at voice acting, and they play off each other masterfully. It's like those two, it's the comedy's great, but for me, what makes it really good and above some of the others is that emotional story through line of Sully helping out Boo and helping Boo get home. I just think that for some reason I wouldn't put it as perfection, because I don't think... it's hard to explain. I don't find it as rewatchable. I don't find it very rewatchable, Monsters Inc. And the world they're in, I can't really... because I can't really relate to it as such. I can't really relate too much of the world that they're in. I know that sounds really picky, but that's reasons why I can't put it higher. but it's still very good. Monsters University is... And so I put it ahead of A Bug's Life. Monsters University. I think Monsters University is funnier, actually, than Monsters, Inc. But there's absolutely no emotion in it whatsoever. I mean, it's just a comedy film for me. I look at Monsters University as just, do I want to have a good time and have a laugh? Yeah, you can put on Monsters University, because Monsters University, some of the jokes in there are absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. The one joke that just has me absolutely howling is when they leave a woman, this mum, in the car to wait for them whilst they go and gate crash Monsters Inc. Incorporated, and they say, "Mum, are you going to be okay in the car?" And she's like, "Yeah, dear, I'll just be here listening to my tunes." And just turns on this like absolute rock heavy metal, and she's just sat there like. It just cracked me up. That's the best joke one of the best Pixar jokes of all time. But Monsters University has several of them, and it's basically a scaled down version of Animal House, but with Pixar animated. With Pixar animation and monsters in it, basically. But it is very funny, and that's why I've got it above A Bug's Life. I think it's just very, very funny. Onward, I haven't seen it. I need to watch it. Ratatouille, I'm going to put it in good. Now, some people may not like that because I know that film has an awful lot of fans. I think, let me just say, the animation in terms of how beautiful Paris looks in it is absolutely sublime. There are individual moments in Ratatouille that are way up at the pinnacle Pixar. That final moment where the food critic, who's just the most unpleasant looking, strict cat. You're really scared of this food critic. And the second, at the end, towards the end of the film, where he eats the food that the rat has prepared in the kitchen, and he's taken back to the first time he experienced food as a child, and that he loved it. And that whole flashback and how that's done is one of the best moments in Pixar. I think there's a lot of other moments in it. It goes on a little bit too long. It's a bit all over the place story-wise. There's beautiful moments of atmosphere and Parisian atmosphere that's threaded throughout it, and it's the music is gorgeous, and the Paris, the setting's wonderful, and some of the characters are really good, but the story is a bit all over the place. They kind of flick between the humans and the rats quite a lot, but you don't really care too much about the humans, or some of them. You care more about the rats, but they don't know where the focus is. It's a little scattered, Ratatouille. To be fair, Bug's Life isn't scattered, so I'm going to put Bug's Life ahead of Ratatouille. Soul, interesting film. Soul, interesting film. It's better than Brave. I think it's good. Some people may say it's great, but I think it's good. I think it's a really, Soul, I think it's really deep film. The problem is that actually that's what I come away with thinking about Soul. That's a really clever film. But I can't remember the characters. I can't really remember the story too much. The concept they were doing, I can't remember the concepts that they were trying to tell in that story, as well as some of the other Pixar films. I just come away with going, that was clever. But did I enjoy it? Maybe not as much as the other films. So that's why I'm going to put it as good. I think it's better than Brave, and I think it's better than Jesus Christ, it's better than any of the Cars films, for God's sake. But I don't think it's up there with the others. The Good Dinosaur, I haven't seen that either. And now we're on to the Incredibles films. Ooh. Right, okay. Incredibles 1, I think, is great. I don't think it's perfection. I think it's really good, though. I think for what they were telling... Remember, Incredibles 1 came out in 2004. At that point, there were no Marvel films at all. They didn't exist. The only superhero film you had, basically, was... I think the first Spider-Man and maybe the second Spider-Man had come out with Tobey Maguire. So this was before any of the superhero films were out there. And this comes out and just literally casts a completely different light on what a superhero film could be. Because they take a superhero film and basically turn it into a family drama. But with the epic scale of an action film. Set in a kind of visual style of a 1960s James Bond film. You whack all that together, you have a heck of a film. You have a really, really good film. I don't put it up there at Pixar perfection because I think this is common with quite a fair few of Brad Bird's films, actually. They go on a little bit long and they almost try and pack a bit too much in. Like they throw too much stuff at you, and they don't condense it down. So I think it's great, but it could be a little bit faster paced. I think it could be a little bit. They could have cut a few things down, and it still would have been very good. And it would have been more concise. I think that's just Brad Bird style, because there's only one or two of Brad Bird's films where I think you got the pace absolutely spot on there. This is not one of them, but what they have in there, they have so much great stuff in there that it has to be great, and you have a blast whilst watching it. Incredibles 2, I think is good. I'll put it ahead of Ratatouille. I think what they do with it is here's the thing. Animation brilliant, characters are the same. What they do with Jack is great. That's probably the one thing everyone remembers about Incredibles 2. Because I actually think the rest of the film is less memorable. The villain in Incredibles 2 lets the film down. Because I don't think the villain is memorable. Syndrome in Incredibles 1, very memorable. Very memorable. Incredibles 2, there we go. There we go. Is it the Screen Slayer? Some sort of screen? I can't actually remember the villain's name or what her is she in it? On what her plan is? I can't, off the top of my head, I can't really remember that very clearly. The only thing I remember is Jack, and the odd decision they made to wipe Violet's boyfriend's memory. That was odd. I didn't enjoy that story choice at all. I thought, cut Violet some slack for God's sake. Like, Violet spent the whole of the first film getting the courage up to speak to this boy, and then within a seconds of the second one, they wipe his memory of all existence of her. That, I didn't think was needed, and I didn't think it progressed the character of either Tony, the boyfriend, or Violet in any way, shape or form. I think it was used purely for comic relief, purely for a couple of jokes, and that's it. And I don't think they made a good choice there, because the possibility of exploring what a young love relationship would have been like with superheroes in the mix God, that potential is absolutely squandered. That could have been fantastic, and they just completely throw that out the window. They just dismissed that, and I didn't like that. I just didn't like that choice. That kind of soured it a bit. There's some decent things in there. The action is superbly done, but it's not up there to Incredibles level. Oh, Turning Red. This is a really good film. In fact, this is going above Finding Dory, and I'm only going off this because I've only seen it once because it's the newest Pixar film. But Turning Red is such a brilliant idea. So good. And it taps into an area that Pixar films have not touched on before, which is young teenagers, young teenage girls. What are young teenage girls going through? And what happens when it comes to dealing with your emotions that are going on whilst you're pubescent? Now it's mainly for teenage girls. I think teenage girls will get the most out of it, but I got an awful lot out of it because the comedy's hilarious, the visuals are stunning, the characters are great. The characters are so identifiable in this that we all know a certain set of friends who are like that, or we have friends that are like that, and it's the animation's brilliant because they go for the exaggerated facial expressions, like the eyes watering really cute. It's almost touching on anime style of animation in parts, which suits what the film is based on, which is Oriental mythology around red pandas. But it just gives the film a really unique flavour. It's quite a short film, but the way they tell the story, it's not dull for a second. Everyone's has their own individual arcs, and the relationship between mother and daughter in this carries the film through. It's got great music in it. Setting's brilliant. Yeah, if I watch this a few more times, this might be in the top tier. I really think Turning Red is brilliant. It's one of the best films I've seen this year, Turning Red. If you haven't seen it, go on Disney Plus, or try, and you have access to Disney Plus, watch it. It's a really, really good watch. Oh, we're on to the Toy Story films now. The classic, the all-time classics. Toy Story 1 was actually the first film I remember watching in the cinema. 1996, I watched it. I was about 5 years old, and I remember watching in the cinema and just being absolutely blown away. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I just thought, this is incredible. I actually think it has to go in the top slot. I think Toy Story 1 is absolutely magnificent. Of course, the animation, by today's standards, is starting to show a little bit of age because they haven't smoothed off all the edges. However, the script and the characters and the story overall, top. Absolutely top tier. If it was a live action film, it would be successful. If it was it's so good you almost forget you're watching an animated film. The characters are so well done and defined early on that instantly between Woody and Buzz you set up the animosity, and eventually little hints that there could be a partnership there, and then a growing respect for each other. And that relationship, that growing relationship, is fascinating to watch, and it's brilliantly acted. And it just, I mean, they hit it out the park. It's got to go at the top. I can't not put Toy Story up there because it's brilliant. Now the others, this is going to be really hard because these are all great films. I think Toy Story 2 is a bit better than Toy Story 1. And that's actually, I know that that's quite a popular opinion amongst people, but I think Toy Story 2 takes everything that was great about Toy Story and bumps it up. I think it's superb. I think what they add to Toy Story 2 is the thought process that actually follows the rest of the films going forward, the Toy Story franchise going forward, which is what happens when the owner of the toy grows too old for that toy. That fear of this isn't forever. That fear that we all have, because it kind of relates to almost like mortality in a way, but like a toy version of it, which is what happens at the end of like a toy's lifespan with an owner. You know, when you either get given away or when you're no longer of use, or in the case of Jessie in Toy Story 2, completely abandoned. And that scene with the song When Somebody Loved Me, with Jessie's backstory, and it's all told through a song and montage. That's Pixar, one of the best Pixar scenes of all time, one of the best animated scenes of all time. That alone, people remember Toy Story 2 just for that scene, and it is fully deserved. The film would still be amazing even if it didn't have that scene in it, but that one takes it up, and that probably knocks it above Toy Story 1. And the fact that if you actually hear the behind the scenes of Toy Story 2, they had to basically fix that film. It was originally stated to be a direct-to-video release. They looked at it and thought, well, this is shit. What the hell are they doing to Toy Story? And they redid the entire film in 18 months. That is incredible. That is absolute, and the fact that it turned out as well as it did is just miraculous. So yeah, Toy Story 2 got to be up there. Do I put it ahead of Coco? Because Coco, it's hard to put. I'm just going to put it in top tier. No, those two are still up there. Yeah. Toy Story 3. I think Toy Story 3 is good. I don't think it. I think the ending of Toy Story 3 is right up at the top. Everything else, not so keen on. I don't think the rest of it is. Absolutely, I think the rest of it is decent. It is pretty good. It's good, just like the tier. I think it's good. I don't think it's amazing. I think a lot of people have a lot of love for Toy Story 3, and the storyline really hooks them in, and the prison break thing really gets them, and really gets their blood pumping, and look at it and go, yeah, the escape. It's like a prison escape movie, and it is, and some of that's very clever. But for me personally, it just did not. I didn't. No, I just, it's not for me. I got more enjoyment out of Toy Story 4 than I did out of Toy Story 3. In fact, Toy Story 4 I'm going to put above The Incredibles. That may surprise a few people, but I think Toy Story 4 is great. I think Toy Story 4 is more fun than Toy Story 3. I think it's funnier. I think the ending is equally as emotive as Toy Story 3. I think it really... it ties up things really well. And it's a really good... it gives Woody a life, a life that he didn't expect, but one that you could absolutely see him loving. with the love of his life, basically. And it's a really sweet ending to the Toy Story franchise. I'm not too sure what they do with... I like what they do with Buzz's character, because they basically reduce him to a one gag part, but the rest of the stuff in Toy Story 4 is just masterful. Up. Oh, God. Up might be... In fact, it is my favourite Pixar film. I think Up is just exquisite. It's just absolutely beautifully done. The idea of taking an old man and making him the hero is just brilliant. But then to have the whole... I mean, every single film critic in the world, and I won't be the first person to have talked about the opening 10 minutes of Up, but that whole setup with the montage at the beginning, in itself, if that was a short film on its own, it would be one of the greatest short films ever made. The fact that that is your opening, that is both brilliant and must be quite nerve-wracking for the filmmakers, because you've got to think to yourself, well, how on earth do we top that opening? Like, how on earth do we go from that opening and then have the rest of the film be on that level? And it's a credit to the filmmakers that if it's not at that level, it's very close to it for the whole runtime. Like, the fact that they get the emotion of that first 10 minutes provides the through line of emotion throughout the entire film is just extraordinary. The fact that they keep that emotion there, and it's always there, of the fact that this man is just doing it to remember his wife. It is just a way of him remembering his wife. And this whole journey is about her and being close to her. For me, the best moment in Up is actually not the opening. It's a bit later on where they hark back to the opening, where he finally gets there. He's been through this whole thing with this bird and this dog and this little lad, and he's finally got there to Paradise Falls. He's finally got to the top of Paradise Falls, and he's sat there on his chair, and he opens up the scrapbook of the stuff that he and his wife as a couple said they would do. And he's looking through it, and he goes to the last page, or what he thinks is the last page, and it turns out it's not the last page. And it turns out his wife, before she passed away, had filled in a load of other stuff in the scrapbook of little things like fixing a car, just being in it, driving through traffic, just putting a new fence together, just painting the side of a house, as pictures. And I'd put them in the scrapbook, and then at the end, just a little note that says, "Thank you for the adventure. Now go and have another one. Love, Ellie." And I'm gone. That is just brilliant storytelling. Brilliant. It just rounds everything off. And as a message for a film, what better message to have than enjoy the simple little moments in life, because they are the moments that you remember the most and that make the most impact, and that life itself is an adventure. Just living life day to day is an adventure. What a brilliant message, and what a brilliant movie. For me, it's number one. It's that they haven't got it better than that. I'm going to get hammered for this. I haven't seen Wall-E, and I really, really should. And Lightyear hasn't come out yet. So that is my Pixar list. Wow. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you didn't mind me rambling too much. Leave your comments in below. Let me know which Pixar films you like the most. And take care, everyone, and I will see you all soon.